I'm really excited to talk with you all about everything that we're doing in the Environmental Compliance Division in Vermont DEC to make permitting more user-friendly and transparent. And I guess that's the first thing that I want to share. And while I'm going ahead and sharing my screen, I'm just going to talk a little bit about why the Vermont DEC decided to come up with a new tool called Permit Navigator. And I think that's really important because anyone that's gone through a permit process knows that it can be somewhat stressful. And when you're going through, you want to make sure that you do everything right and that you're following the rules and regulations that are out there. So one of the ways that we're working to do that is through the instituting an online tool called Permit Navigator. And what Permit Navigator is essentially meant to do is it's meant to be a more efficient, a more user-friendly, and a more transparent tool to be able to have folks go through to answer a series of yes and no questions, and it's associated with a map. So you don't have to be an environmental consultant to know exactly what kind of permits that you might need to get for your project, and you'll know the people that you need to talk to get those permits. So think of it as kind of like your own personal online permit specialist that's going to walk you through a series of yes, no questions that will end up telling you, based off your responses and what we saw on the map, these are the permits that we think you're going to need. So to back up a little bit, my name is Adam Miller. I'm the Environmental Compliance Division Director for the Vermont Department of Environmental Conservation, and also joining me here today is one of our current permit specialists, Pete Kopsco. And Pete was instrumental. I have to acknowledge that he was so instrumental in helping us out in getting Permit Navigator off of the ground. So with that, what I'm going to start talking about is a little bit of how to navigate through Permit Navigator. And as we're going through the process and running kind of a mock scenario, Pete is also going to start talking about some of the common permits that come up and what the nature of those is for someone, say, like, moving to Vermont and wanting to build a house on a property. So with that, Pete, I'm going ahead here and I'm going to pretend like I don't know what I'm doing right now, and you can walk me through how to access Permit Navigator and get started.
Sure. So right now you're on the department's homepage. You can get there by going to dec.vermont.gov. It's also on the Agency of Natural Resources homepage. So if you go down, scroll down to the Permit Navigator there, right prominently on the front page, go ahead and click on the link. This is the homepage for the Permit Navigator. Before we move on from this, just point out a couple of things. You see that Get Started button. Below that is a place where you can look up all Agency of Natural Resources permits and get information about each of them. So if, for example, you don't have a location yet, or you just want to find more information about a permit that you heard about, this would be a great place to go to look it up. Also, off to the right, you will see a bunch of videos that are sort of instructionals about how to use the Permit Navigator. So, but if you want to go ahead, click Get Started. Here is the sort of welcome landing page for people who are going to go through the Permit Navigator, which is going to have us answer some questions about our project. And get some information about what permits we would need. If you want to go ahead and get started with that, you'll see some welcome information plus a disclaimer that just sort of like lets you know that this is not that this is just to help you. It's not a determination from a formal determination from the department. Okay, so here you got some general questions, and you're going to go ahead and identify what kind of project we're going to take on here.
Yep, so today we're going to be doing an individual category, like I'm an individual citizen, and I am going to plan on building a home.
Great. And as you select a location, next it's going to ask you to select a location. You'll set, for those of you who are watching along, you do not have to provide us your information, although you'll see that there's a place for you to do that, and there would be some additional functionality with regards to that coming in the future. So right now, Adam is selecting a location to build a house.
Yeah, so I'm going to select right here.
Great.
All right.
Some common questions that come up when people are building a house are, some common permit questions that they need to be thinking about are getting a wastewater permit. That's a big one for all houses and other types of buildings. Really anything that's going to have a septic system, people using it who are going to need to use the septic system. And then some other permits that people should think about are have to do with impacts to natural resources, so wetlands or floodplains. And as you see, as Adam goes through here, the Permit Navigator is asking him to answer some questions about some of those things. So let him answer some questions about.
Yeah, so this is a really good point, Pete. So what folks are seeing right now is I'm kind of going through the Permit Navigator tool. As you can see, it's a series of yes/no questions, and they're pretty straightforward questions that ask a number of questions about the nature of your project and what kind of things are going on. So just as an example, there's a stream alteration and stream crossing structure question. It asks if I'm going to be creating a berm or if I'm going to be moving any fill within a perennial stream or crossing any stream. So if you have any questions, you can either hover over, if you see like this dot, you can hover over that. So if you didn't know what perennial stream was or berm meant, there's definitions for that. You can click on the show details and it also gives you some more definitions there. So if there is a question that's unclear, that's a lot of times a way to help out with that. So I'm going to answer no for this. One of the things that it asks is your project proposing activities in or near a floodplain, river, and or stream? So if you saw on the map when we originally picked the location, it was pretty close to a river. It was close to the Winooski River, so I'm going to go ahead and select yes for that, and we're going to continue to move on. So here's another good example of where we talked about the different details. So disposal of inert waste. A lot of people might wonder, what is inert waste? And that's why we've also included in here the definition. So inert waste can mean stumps, brush, untreated wood. So I'm going to go ahead and answer no for that. And as I'm kind of going through these different categories, Pete, feel free to chime in with some other kind of things that you feel like in your time as a permit specialist, folks have ran into as, when they're going through a permitting scenario.
Yeah, on that, Adam, why don't you select I don't know, just to show folks how that functionality works for the stormwater one.
Yeah, so that's a great point. So I'll go ahead and select, I don't know if I need an operational stormwater discharge, or I don't know if I'm going to disturb more than 1 acre of land. So we'll go ahead with that, and then we'll move forward in the process, and that should show up later.
And then here it's going to march you through a series of questions that get to whether or not you might need a wastewater permit. So go ahead and answer those questions.
So you can see that a lot of this is really just is going through these yes/no questions. They're relatively straightforward questions. And a lot of times, if you don't know, you can add the I don't know. I'm going to go ahead and finish up these questions. Select next. So here's an example. Wetlands. It sometimes can be hard to determine if there's a wetland present. I don't think there's a wetland present, so I'm going to say no. And then we're going to click this, and this should take us. You can see along the left-hand side where there's different categories, and it kind of shows you the progress as you're going through the Permit Navigator. So I'm going to go ahead and select next, and we're going to get a Permit Navigator result. And Pete, would you like to talk a little bit about kind of some of the Permit Navigator results and how you interpret what you get?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and share my screen and we can talk about the Permit Navigator results.
And just so folks know, Pete and I kind of staged this ahead of time where Pete had the same Permit Navigator result. We answered the same question, so he should have the same result that I would have gotten.
So here we are, we're looking at the Permit Navigator results that for the project that Adam was just describing. And a couple of things you'll see here. There's a little description about the location, and then next you'll see we have some permits that that came up as a result of both the questions that he answered and also the mapping that we have on our end. So, and then here's a little quick blurb about floodplain and river corridor permitting. And when one presses view additional details, you get a link to the program contact who handles floodplain permitting in Montpelier, which is where our project is located. So it gives you Ned's name, phone number, and email address. Scrolling down, one of the things Adam wasn't sure about was wetlands. He didn't think that there were wetlands, but you can see here that our mapping suggested that there are wetland issues present. It includes the reference to Shannon Morrison, who is the wetland ecologist who handles wetland permitting in Montpelier. And helpfully, scrolling back up here, you can also view a map and see what that map information revealed.
And while Pete is waiting for that map to come up, I think it's really important to mention to folks that the interesting part about Permit Navigator is where in the past an environmental consultant or someone would have to basically like look at these maps ahead of time and give you input as to, you know, what kind of, if you're in a wetland or where these things are. This is all kind of built into the background of the Permit Navigator system. So when you're answering the yes/no questions, even if you answer a question, you know, and you honestly didn't know that there was a wetland present, the map data, because you put a dot on a map, actually is able to reference that, and it's able to back check it and say like, well, you know, based off of your responses, you don't think we need a permit, but based off of the data that we have on wetlands, on river corridors, we actually think that you do need a permit. So it's a way to kind of double check it. So that way you're being extra certain that you're, you know, you're going through the full review process to get the permits that you need.
Yeah, thank you, Adam. And this is what you'll see when that loads. So here you see these bright yellow areas on the parcel indicate the presence of mapped wetland. And there's some other issues here too. This red cross hatching and this beige layer that I'm pointing out here get to the floodplain. This is a flood hazard area. This is a river corridor area. And then we also have this, it's hard to tell here, but we have a light beige here, and that's hydric soils, which may also be an indication of potential wetland issues. So, yeah.
Well, thank you so much, Pete. And just to kind of bring it back full circle for folks, you know, this tool, the true purpose of it is to be more user-friendly, to be consistent. You don't have to worry about contacting someone in an office and they're not around for the day, or they're out on vacation, or it's 9 o'clock at night and no one's in the office then. Hopefully no one's in the office then. That, you know, this is a way that you can look into these things on your own and hopefully have a good user-friendly tool to be able to know at the end of the day, here's the project I want to undertake, here's the permits that I think I might need, and here are the people that I need to talk to.